there are Muslims silently suffering right now. Not just because life is hard, but because they genuinely feel guilty asking Allah to make things easier for them. Like somewhere along the way, people started believing that if you really trust Allah, you should just quietly accept pain and stop asking for relief from it. So instead of making dua, they force themselves to say things like, whatever Allah wants, it's okay. I should just accept it. Maybe this is what I deserve. Maybe asking for ease means my iman is weak. But sometimes that's not tawakkul. Sometimes it's emotional shutdown hidden behind religious language. Assalamu alaikum, beautiful souls. I hope you are doing well. Today we are talking about something that I think a lot of Muslims experience internally but rarely say out loud. Are we actually supposed to ask Allah for ease? Or are we supposed to silently accept hardship and never question it emotionally? And see, I'm not talking about questioning Allah's wisdom here. I'm talking about something much deeper emotionally. Because there are people who are trying so hard to become better Muslims, but at the same time, they are emotionally exhausted. They are overwhelmed, anxious, tired of waiting, tired of hurting, and tired of pretending they are okay. But the second they want comfort or relief from Allah, guilt kicks in. Like, am I becoming too attached to dunya? Should I even ask Allah to remove this hardship? What if good Muslims are just supposed to tolerate pain silently? And to be honest, this topic was suggested by one of you. The moment I read that message, I immediately knew we needed to talk about it because this confusion is way more common than people realize, especially among people who are sincere in their faith. So, in today's video, I really just want us to sit together and unpack this properly, but in a real human way. Like, what does trust in Allah actually look like? Can you deeply trust Allah and still desperately ask Him to make your life easier? And when does acceptance slowly become emotional suppression without us even noticing it? We are going to talk about all of that today. And also, if you ever have topics you want me to discuss on this channel, you can always DM me on Instagram. And I think the emotional side of this conversation is something we really need to talk about honestly, because a lot of people are struggling with this quietly internally, especially people who are genuinely trying to be close to Allah. Because the guilt is not always obvious. Sometimes it sounds very spiritual on the outside, like someone will say, no, no, it's okay, Allah knows best. But internally, they are exhausted. And over time, they stop allowing themselves to even want things. They stop asking openly, they stop expressing hurt, they start feeling guilty for being emotionally tired. And I think one of the biggest reasons this happens is because many Muslims accidentally start associating suffering with spiritual superiority. Like, if your life is constantly difficult and you stay silent through it, somehow that means your iman is stronger. And if you want ease, if you want things to get better, if you want relief, then maybe your faith is less. Because then people start feeling guilty for completely human things. Wanting marriage because you feel lonely, wanting your anxiety to stop because your mind is constantly overwhelmed, wanting financial stability because you are mentally drained from stress all the time, wanting peace at home because family conflict is affecting your nervous system every single day. These are not shallow desires, these are human needs. But a lot of people start judging themselves for even wanting life to feel lighter. And then spiritual comparison makes it worse. You'll hear stories about people being patient for years, suffering silently, never complaining. And suddenly you start feeling like maybe your pain is only valid if you stay quiet too. And I think social media has also contributed to this in some ways. Because people often glorify suffering in a very unhealthy way, as if struggling constantly automatically makes someone closer to Allah. But Islam never taught us to worship pain. And I really want people to understand this point deeply. Some people feel closer to Allah through honesty, others think they can only be close to Allah through suffering. Because one person cries to Allah openly, speaks honestly, asks for healing, asks for ease. while another person keeps suppressing everything, thinking, no, maybe I should just silently tolerate it. And somewhere along the way, many people started believing that asking Allah for ease means they are spiritually weak, which is seriously such a heartbreaking misunderstanding because Allah is not asking you to become emotionally numb in order to be close to Him. And I think the confusion starts when people misunderstand what concepts like sabr and tawakkul are actually supposed to look like. Because a lot of us grew up hearing beautiful Islamic phrases, but nobody really taught us how to emotionally process pain alongside those phrases. So, what happens? People start confusing surrender with silence, sabr with emotional suppression, tawakkul with complete passivity. And these things are not the same. Like, see, someone is hurting deeply. Maybe they are emotionally drained. Maybe they are anxious all the time. Maybe something painful happened in their marriage, family, friendships, career, whatever it is. But before they even sit with the emotion, before they even process what they are feeling, they immediately shut themselves down with spiritual language. It is what it is. Allah knows the best. Allahu alam. Whatever Allah wants. And again, these statements are true. I'm not saying they are wrong. But sometimes people use true statements to emotionally escape instead of emotionally process. And there's a difference. Because sometimes people say spiritual things because they trust Allah. And sometimes people say spiritual things because they don't know how to sit with their emotions. Because avoidance does not always look dramatic. Sometimes avoidance looks calm, religious, composed. Externally, the person seems strong, but internally, they are disconnected from themselves. Like, for example, someone keeps saying, I have accepted it, but their body is constantly anxious, their chest feels heavy, they overthink every night, they feel emotionally numb, they stop making heartfelt duas, everything becomes emotionally flat. And then they think this emotional shutdown is sabr. When actually, sometimes it's unprocessed pain sitting inside the nervous system for too long. I think so many Muslims are emotionally exhausted not only because of hardship itself, but because they feel like they are not allowed to emotionally react to hardship, as if expressing pain somehow cancels patience. But that was never the Islamic model. The Prophet ﷺ never taught emotional denial. He never taught people to pretend pain doesn't hurt. Because crying to Allah is not hopelessness. Feeling overwhelmed is not weak iman. Wanting things to change is not rebellion against Allah. You know what actually becomes dangerous? When a person stops speaking honestly altogether. When every dua becomes filtered, emotionally distant, and very careful. Like they are trying to sound spiritually correct instead of emotionally real. And over time, this creates something very painful internally. Numbness, sometimes resentment, sometimes emotional burnout, sometimes even distance from dua itself. Because when people suppress emotions instead of bringing them to Allah, eventually they stop feeling connected during worship. And this becomes even more clear when you actually look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Because the Prophet ﷺ asked Allah for ease repeatedly. He asked Allah for protection from anxiety, from grief, from weakness, from debt, from hardship, which already tells us something very important. If asking Allah for relief was weak faith, the Prophet ﷺ would not have taught us those duas. And this is the part I really want everyone to deeply understand. The Prophet ﷺ did not teach emotional denial. He taught emotional honesty with Allah. Because now suddenly, vulnerability is not weakness anymore. Now saying, Ya Allah, this is hurting me. Ya Allah, I feel overwhelmed. Ya Allah, please make this easier, is not spiritually wrong. It's actually intimacy with Allah. Some people imagine acceptance as becoming emotionally unaffected by everything. But acceptance in Islam was never meant to kill vulnerability. It was meant to protect trust, meaning you can cry and still trust Allah. You can feel disappointed and still trust Allah. You can ask Allah repeatedly for something and still trust His wisdom if the answer is delayed. These things can coexist. And this is where dua becomes so beautiful psychologically. Because dua is not you fighting Allah's plan, dua is you turning toward Allah inside the plan. You are bringing your human heart back to Him while living through the decree. And one thing that really changed my perspective personally is realizing this: Allah already knows your pain. The dua is not for His information, it's for your connection. And maybe that's why some of the most powerful duas are not the most perfect sounding ones. Sometimes the most sincere dua is literally, Ya Allah, I'm tired. Please help me. I don't know what to do anymore. And I think this is where we need to talk about something a little deeper psychologically. Because sometimes the phrase, whatever Allah wants, is coming from trust, but sometimes it's being used too early, before the person has even emotionally processed what they are going through. For example, someone gets hurt deeply, something breaks emotionally inside them, maybe they are mentally struggling, maybe they are constantly anxious and overwhelmed, but instead of allowing themselves to actually feel the grief, they immediately rush into acceptance mode. Maybe I should just accept it. Allah knows best. It's okay. I shouldn't complain. And again, there's nothing wrong with these statements themselves. The problem is when they are being used. Because if acceptance comes before emotional honesty, sometimes it doesn't become healing. Sometimes it becomes suppression. And suppressed emotions don't magically disappear just because we use spiritual language over them. They stay inside the body, inside the mind, inside the nervous system. And over time, they come out in different ways. It can be as emotional exhaustion, numbness, overthinking, feeling disconnected in salah, feeling emotionally distant from dua. And I think one of the saddest things is when people start feeling spiritually guilty for normal human emotional needs. Like, imagine a girl who is struggling emotionally for months. She keeps telling herself, no, it's okay, I should just accept Allah's plan. But internally, she feels lonely, overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted. She wants support and comfort, but she feels guilty even acknowledging those needs. So instead of reaching out, instead of seeking help, or instead of speaking honestly, she keeps suppressing everything because she thinks that's what strong faith looks like. And to be honest, that breaks my heart a little because Allah did not create emotions so you could pretend not to have them. He created sadness, fear, longing, grief, hope. These emotions are part of being human. Healthy surrender comes after honesty, not instead of honesty. Because real surrender sounds like, Ya Allah, this hurts me deeply, but I still trust you. I think we sometimes forget how emotionally human Islam actually is. Like, look at the du'as in Islam. There is longing in them, hope in them, fear in them, need in them. That emotional honesty was never condemned, it was a part of connection with Allah. Because now people realize wanting healing is not weak faith, wanting companionship is not weak faith, wanting life to feel lighter is not weak faith. It's human. And there's a balance that Islam teaches so beautifully. For example, someone who is ill can say, I accept Allah's decree, and also say, Ya Allah, grant me shifa. See, both can exist together. A person waiting years for marriage can trust Allah's timing and still cry at tahajjud asking Allah for companionship. Someone struggling financially can have tawakkul while desperately asking Allah to open doors for risk and opportunities. A person going through emotional pain can accept the test without pretending it doesn't hurt. And I think this is the line that changes everything. Faith is not the absence of human emotion. Faith is bringing those emotions back to Allah. Many people need practical guidance here because emotionally they don't know how to balance dua and acceptance together. So let's make it very simple. First, be honest with Allah. Not formal, filtered, emotionally robotic. Just honest. Say, Ya Allah, I am struggling. Ya Allah, I feel overwhelmed. Ya Allah, I feel scared. Ya Allah, I am tired. And then ask specifically, Ya Allah, please make the situation easier. Ya Allah, bring healing into my heart. Ya Allah, remove this anxiety from me. Ya Allah, grant me righteous companionship. Ya Allah, open doors for me. Then, after making dua, don't emotionally shut yourself down. Stay emotionally open. Cry if you need to cry. Journal it. Talk to someone safe. Process your emotions properly. Seek help if needed. Because emotional processing is not opposite to tawakkul. And finally, trust the outcome. Not because you fully understand the plan, but because you trust the one who sees what you cannot see. And I think one of the healthiest ways to make dua is saying, Ya Allah, if this is good for me, bring it closer to me, and if it's not, then guide me through whatever is better. And before ending this video, I really want to leave you with this. Allah never asked you to stop asking. He only asked you to trust Him with the answer. You are allowed to want ease. You are allowed to ask for healing. You are allowed to ask Allah to remove pain from your life. You are allowed to say, Ya Allah, this hurts. That does not make you weak, it makes you human. And maybe faith was never about pretending pain doesn't exist. Maybe faith was always about knowing where to take it. For more reminders and healing conversations like this, you can join my homecoming circle for free. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Until then, take care of your beautiful souls. Assalamu alaikum.